Hello and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures that Outperform. I'm Frank Wander and I'm here with my co-host Terry Mays. Today we're going to be talking about the Low EQ Coworker. So this is a great episode. If you've been following us, you know in this series we're talking about people unproductive. Those people that are just a pain to work with. Sometimes they're leaders, sometimes they're coworkers. They create all sorts of issues in the work environment. They slow things down. And, there are great stories about all of them. And nothing matters more in today's world of work than EQ. Emotional intelligence is at the heart of collaboration. It is so important to collaborate. Solo jobs where you sit there and do things are being automated away. So what's left is working with others to produce value for the company. Low EQ workers are missing these vital components, which is knowing yourself, self-awareness, and being socially intelligent, aware of others. And we're going to talk about that today and the type of trouble that gets them into. So, Tara, how about a quick intro?
Yes, hello. I'm Terri Mays, a certified culture engineer with emphasis on helping companies bring out the best in their people.
Yeah, and I'm Frank Wander. I'm the founder and CEO of PeopleProductive. We help companies use the time, talent, and energy of their people most effectively so they create cultures that outperform. People are the most important tool in every company. If the leaders in the company don't know how to actually unlock the best they have to give, they're just not going to win and outcompete. So all of this matters. And on that topic, people unproductive, this low EQ coworker is a real problem. You might want to go back and, listen in on the low empathy leader. That's one facet of emotional intelligence, empathy, understanding others. But when you think about how important it is to understand yourself, this personal competence, Daniel Goleman and company, I think, nailed this the best. He set up that Emotional Intelligence Consortium after he wrote his book, Emotional Intelligence, in 1996. You can go to that site, theiconsortium.org. They have tons of great information on emotional intelligence. I'd highly recommend it. But, think about if you don't have self-awareness, what a huge problem that is. You're not aware of your own limitations. You don't know what you're good at. You just don't have any ability to regulate yourself. That's a real problem. Self-regulation is huge. Control over impulses, and self-regulation, being trustworthy because you understand what that is. Conscientiousness, adaptability. The self-motivation that comes from really having good control out of your emotions, and knowing what your drives are and what gets you where you're going. So this is vital to success. And maybe we could start with self-awareness, Tara.
Yeah, self awareness is so important in so many different arenas in life. So, a lot of the things that we talk about, and we've said this before, but these things are something that you can apply across the board. It's not just related to your work life. You can apply this to your home life, your personal life, your relationships, because being self aware really does give you that ability to recognize and understand yourself. So, what triggers you? What makes your emotions run high? What makes your emotions run low? Understanding your own mood and the effect that your mood has on other people is so important. So, just because you're having a bad day, it's not okay to make everybody else have a bad day too. That's just not okay. When you're self aware, you know that. And you try not to make your bad day be a problem for everybody else around you. You don't go through all of those emotional extremes where you're in the workplace or at home and you're having these loud outbursts because you can't control the people around you. Or you go into these times where you're just so emotional that you're crying all the time. That emotional pendulum that's swinging back and forth, it's difficult for people to live in a space with you, whether it's at work or at home or anywhere, even out just interacting with people in the grocery store. It's difficult when that person is just an emotional roller coaster. You never know which person you're going to get that day. They're just kind of up and down and all over the place. So, being able to regulate yourself and to be able to control and monitor your emotions, recognize when you need a break, recognize when you're in a conversation that you need to leave before you say something or do something that's probably not the best response. All of those things are just triggers and indicators that you are self aware. You understand the impact of what you do and how you respond and that impact that it has on other people. That is so critical, especially in these times that we live. People are just kind of like on a hair, just on the ready to
Yeah.
send the evil comments on social media or to dislike something you said. And now it's not just a matter of we disagree, but it's almost escalated to this point where, you're just a bad person if you disagree with me. We're in such a age of social media that is just really taking it there with comments and
Yeah.
posts people do.
Very unfortunate, how social media has decayed so many relationships.
Mhm.
But, people who really lack that self-awareness and self-regulation, they don't really know where their emotions and feelings are coming from. They don't feel them coming on probably. We're pretty high EQ, so I haven't had to deal with it, but I've had to deal with plenty of people who just can't regulate their emotions in meetings. They
Yes. Yes.
invariably, they might come off very overconfident about who they are and what they can do. They'll say that they can tackle things that everybody in the place says, in their own mind, like, there's no way this person can get that done. So they don't know their boundaries. They don't understand themselves. And these people are tough to work with on a team. They're tough to work with in meetings, and we get down to this interpersonal side, which is the whole, social competence or social awareness. I mean, we see all of it manifesting in really destructive behaviors with the team. And I think we should get into that because that is a huge piece of why they really, really have trouble. It's the heart of collaboration. And I think nothing matters more in this new world of work where people have to work together to get things done. Being able to be one of these people that can bring harmony to things when it's necessary. It's a crucial skill. And, it's a governor over whether group tasks translate into results.
Yeah.
So you can look at this pretty broadly. We see that people have a sensitivity to the needs of others. They have a desire to serve them. People with social intelligence, they have ability to really develop others because they're aware of others' limitations. They can see them. They read people well, all of these signals, and they can help guide them and give them advice. And leaders in particular who have really good social awareness, they're politically aware. They understand the power structure. They know how to navigate it. They don't burn bridges, they build them. And so they have influence, which is the ability to persuade people. So these folks, they have such important skills in this new era of work. And I can't say enough about how important this is. High EQ is a better predictor of success than just about anything in a world where people are the most important tool in every company, and how effectively they work together and do things together is everything.
Yes. And your ability to regulate yourself and be aware of yourself and what you're doing, these are skill sets that you can learn. So if you are on the lower side of EQ and you don't really get it, you think that people are always just blowing things out of proportion and everybody else is just so sensitive. If that's you, you can actually learn, you can improve, you can grow. You don't have to stay in that space of just being a low EQ person. You can learn how to be more mindful of your own thoughts and feelings. Take some time and really start to practice that. You really have to be intentional about it. If this is not something that comes as second nature to you, Frank and I kind of, this is second nature for us,
Mhm.
but it may not be for you, and that's okay. Find ways to get around people that are high EQ and learn from what they do, practice what they do, follow their example, and find ways to really manage those difficult emotions for you, because everybody has a time where we just feel like I can't take it this anymore, or I don't like what's happening. So it's all about how do I respond in that moment. I'm not going to agree with everything that everybody says. I'm going to have times where I disagree or I have a different opinion, and that's okay. The
Yeah,
question
a
is,
good
how
thing
do I
actually.
respond? How do I deal with that? And that's where my EQ shows or doesn't. Where the
Yeah.
low EQ shows up is how you respond, how you communicate with people. And in this world that we're in today, where everything is moving more in an agile direction, where we're having to make changes and direction so much quicker than we have in the past. So things are moving at a much faster pace. It's so important to have high EQ.
Oh, it really is. When you look at somebody who's working in a group of people, they can read the room. They have, real good social awareness. They read the room. That means suddenly they've got influence. They can read the room, see what people are reacting to, what they aren't. They're good listeners generally. They pick up all of the signals, both spoken and unspoken, in the room. They can, see if the group is leaning in a direction. They can help build enthusiasm for things that are going on. They can keep people on the same page. They could be a champion for things very easily and help bring people along. They build bonds with people quickly, so they're able to connect with new people who come into groups and teams, help them, make them part of the team, weave them into the fabric of what's happening. And relationships are at the core of what's going on. And what people with high levels of social intelligence are good at is conflict management. They avoid conflicts. And if they break out, they have skills to help kind of mend fences and overcoming them. They may very well be good at sharing credit and, doing things like that. So it is so, so important. I would say in some ways, it's everything, because you can always get people with technical skills, but you got to have people who can translate that into kind of group success. And that's why these high EQ people matter. The low EQ people, they're in the meeting, they put their foot in the mouth. They'll make a comment. They haven't read the signals. They don't know who supports what. They'll say something that offends somebody. And
Right.
they do that. I mean, I've seen it so many times. And then you got to be the cleanup crew and maybe call these people aside and say, I don't know if you realize, but what you said in that meeting really offended this person because they've taken this position a number of times. I think it's very important. At least it's important to them. And you haven't been listening and understanding, what people want. I have always found these low EQ people to be totally focused on their needs, meeting their needs, because they've got things they want to get done. They're never helping meet anybody else's needs. They don't understand them. And they tend to fail, especially where they've got to get buy-in from others, because it's a
Yeah.
one-way street working with these people.
Yeah. They're totally oblivious to what's happening. They're not seeing the faces and reading facial expressions or the body
No.
language of people around them. So when they're saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, they don't realize it. They just are totally clueless. And they end up just focusing on their own feelings and what they want. They really rarely reach out to try to be concerned about somebody else. So that whole idea of practicing empathy is a foreign concept to them
Yeah.
because it's all about me and what I need. They rarely want to accept criticism for anything, no kind of criticism whatsoever,
Mhm.
because in their world, they're the greatest. And anybody else that's trying to tell me something otherwise, they're just wrong. And there's no discussing it with them.
Oh, yeah.
They don't even feel like there's areas for improvement. They really feel like in my world, I'm the greatest. So who are you to tell me or challenge me in any way? If you're that kind of person that feels like that, you may want to look at how you can grow in your EQ, how you can become more of a positive person that is not so sensitive to criticism, that's able to open up and accept, constructive criticism. Nobody likes to be criticized, but you want to have some constructive criticism where everybody has room to grow. If you're that person that's constantly misreading a situation or misinterpreting what was said, or if you feel like people are constantly misinterpreting what you mean, then you're probably in that low EQ. There's something in the way that you're communicating that can improve. So
Mhm.
take that as a cue. Don't see it as people are always against you and kind of go into that pessimistic mindset and all of the negativity that comes behind with that. You really do want to see maybe there's something to what people are saying. Maybe there's an area where I can grow. It's not always about you being the person that's saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. Like, you don't have to stay in that space. You can actually get better control of your emotions, find ways to connect with people so that you can practice empathy. These are all skill sets that you can learn.
Yeah, no question. And if you're a leader, these people just give you shivers almost because they do things that are just so emotionally unintelligent. You just can't believe it. So you have to put them in roles where they're not going to have to collaborate in a heavy way because they're going to create damage in a wake. And, there are a lot of programmers that are introverts that have to work. And by no means I'm saying, these people are introverts. They don't have to be at all. They're just low EQ. But you could put them in a role that requires less collaboration, where they're an individual contributor working with fewer people. There are roles like that. There are fewer and fewer of them. But you got to try to put them in that role. By no means consider them to be a supervisor, even if they have technical skills, and put them in a role where they're really going to have to which requires a high level of EQ to work with people, direct them, influence them, make them feel good, coach them, grow them. They don't have any of these skills.
Right.
They're not going to
Right.
do it. They're going to create damage. They're going to ruin teams, going to make people feel unmotivated.
Right. Absolutely. So, Marcelo, will you bring up the key takeaways?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, I love this quote from Daniel Goleman, and he really has nailed it. So if you're trying to grow in EQ, you really do want to read some of his material, subscribe to his newsletters. Like,
Big time.
it's really good information. But gifted leadership occurs when heart and head, feeling and thought meet. These are the two winds that allow a leader to soar. So it's not just about having all the right skill sets and having the knowledge, but you've got to have the ability to bring the heart and the passion into what you're doing, so that now it's not just about getting the task done, but you're focused on the people that are getting the task done. So that is a really good quote from Daniel Goleman. But
And
these
by the
are
way,
just,
that's what makes a great coworker too, quite honestly.
yes,
They have
yes.
they're great thinkers, but really feeling, understand what's happening, fit in well.
Yes, yes, yes.
Good to
So,
go.
in summary, these are some of the signs. If you're exhibiting these signs, or if you see them in the workplace, these people probably have low EQ. And like we said, there's ways that you can improve, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that whole overall lack of self awareness and lack of social competence. So you're constantly saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. You miss those emotional cues. You're insensitive to other people. All of those are just signals that, your EQ is a little low. You like to blame other people, or you lack that emotional control. You're having these loud outbursts of either rage and anger, or you're crying and making a scene. All of those are just signals of low EQ. You're pessimistic and having difficulty interpreting situations, so you feel like you're being misunderstood all the time, and you can't understand what other people are saying. You're not able to show compassion, or you're not able to have empathy for others. All of those are just signals that maybe you need to spend some time working on yourself to improve your EQ. So, how do you do that? What are some of the things you can do to do that? One for sure is learning to manage your emotions. That's probably the biggest piece of it, in being more self aware and being able to regulate yourself. That is probably the biggest rock if you're looking
They
for a
could
big
conquer
rock.
themselves. That would be quite an
Yeah.
achievement.
It is quite an achievement to be able to regulate yourself. It's not easy.
Yeah.
This is not an easy change to make, but it can be done. You can focus on yourself and learning your own social triggers and cues, and learn when you're getting in a danger zone, and find some coping mechanisms to get out of those dangerous places. There's some really good information as well on Very Well Minds website. So I encourage you to take a look at that. But there are lots of great tips on how you can improve your EQ. You can also improve your social skills. So there's one good way to do that, and that's by getting around people that have great social skills and mimic what they do. So when you find somebody that's doing something well, you want to stick around that person, start to understand how they do what they do, and then just do it. Like, don't try to analyze it and understand why they're doing it the way they're doing it. If you're really trying to grow and improve, just give it a try. You'll be surprised at how well you can manage yourself so much better by just having an example of somebody that does this very well. And then practicing empathy. It really is a practice. Even for high EQ people, you still have to practice empathy. It's our natural tendency to be selfish and to be consumed with our own world and what's happening to us. But you have to take time to really consider the impact of what you're doing and how it hinders or helps other people. And then last but not least, your motivation cannot all be from just extrinsic stimulus. So you can't always get a reward or a prize for what's happening. You need to have some intrinsic motivation. So it needs to be a lot of things that you do that are the result of just my passion and my drive. And I'm doing this because I get enjoyment from it. And because I know that I'm helping somebody else. It's not always about, am I getting paid for this? Or am I getting recognition for this? Or am I going to get exposure to some new client or high level leader that gets to see me doing this? A lot of things that you do, especially with this podcast. We're
Mhm.
doing this because we get true, honest enjoyment from being able to help people.
Yeah,
And that's why we do the podcast. It's not
that's
because
simple.
anybody's paying us.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Right.
Right. We don't get paid for this, guys. We actually do this for free because we actually enjoy it. So there's a great sense of contentment and joy that comes when you're doing things that you love doing. And it's not even like work. It just becomes fun and play. So for us, this is just a light play. So we enjoy it so much that we do it. You can improve in that area by doing things that really bring you great joy. So I challenge you this week to find one thing that you can do to improve your EQ. Even those of us that are high EQ people, we can still grow some more. So find an area where you're weak in and improve.
Yeah, and if you're a leader, try to spot the low EQ people. They're unlikely to grow a lot in this area, but everybody is gifted with EQ for the most part, and all of you can grow and take this very seriously because this is an incredibly valuable skill. You can always interact with people better. You can become more outward focused. You can care about others and their needs. You can try to understand who they are, what their motivations are. If you can understand your motivations, you can probably start to understand other people's motivations, get to know them, talk to them, and really build those relationships, that'll give you more influence, allow you to actually accomplish more in the organization, help more people. We've gone through many different episodes that talk about why helping others actually ends up returning a lot to you. So this
Yes.
is all important. Grow your EQ and spot the low EQ people around. We're giving you some tips here on how to do that. And if you're a leader, just put them in a place where they're not going to do too much damage. So next week we're going to have a special surprise episode, and then we're going to get back on to People Unproductive on Wednesday the 14th. And there we're going to be talking about the in crowd, which is very damaging in organizations. I've seen them in a number of different companies, and they certainly hold back a lot of people who don't become part of that in crowd. You might want to tune in for that.
Yes. You don't want to have cliques in your organization. That's really
No,
dangerous.
it's really bad. Yeah. Make sure those don't exist, but we'll talk about them, why they're so damaging. And those are unproductive people. So we thank you for joining us. We're here every Wednesday, 3 o'clock Eastern. We hope you're enjoying the show and the series. We see subscribers on the channel are going up, and that is really good. I think we probably provide more information on that channel because you are the product and a better you is a solution. There is just such rich information to dig into on just such a variety of topics. You can really get a PhD listening to all of this and dig in. You could just go to the eiconsortium.org. You could dig into that. You could go get Daniel Goleman's book on emotional intelligence, 1996, still a classic. If you haven't read it, get it, read it. It's great. I mean, there's so much that you can learn, do, and grow as you explore these topics. So we thank you for coming and joining us and
Yes.
being a member of the channel and the group. So we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Take care.
Yes. Bye for now.